The most dangerous thing humanity could lose isn't intelligence, it's embarrassment. Imagine waking up tomorrow and suddenly every single person on Earth loses the ability to feel embarrassed. No awkward moments, no blushing after saying something stupid, no shame after making a mistake. At first, it sounds incredible. You could dance in the middle of a crowded street, wear anything you want, say whatever comes to your mind, and never worry about being judged again. Sounds like freedom, doesn't it? But here's the strange part. What if removing just one tiny emotion completely changed human civilization? Because embarrassment isn't just an uncomfortable feeling. It's something every culture on Earth shares. Every language has a word for it. Every child experiences it. Every adult tries to avoid it. Yet, almost nobody stops to ask, why do humans even have embarrassment in the first place? Evolution doesn't keep useless things. If an emotion survived for hundreds of thousands of years, there must be a reason. Maybe embarrassment isn't a weakness. Maybe it's one of the invisible rules holding society together. So today, we're going to imagine something impossible. A world where embarrassment never existed. No shame, no awkward silence, no fear of looking foolish. At first, everything seems perfect. But as the days pass, something unexpected begins to happen. Friendships start changing. Schools feel different. Families behave strangely. Trust slowly begins to disappear. And by the end, you might realize that the emotion everyone hates was secretly protecting all of us. So, what would the very first day without embarrassment actually look like? Imagine it's the very first morning, and overnight, every human on Earth has lost the ability to feel embarrassed. At first, almost nobody notices. Life feels normal until people leave their homes. Suddenly, the streets begin to look different. Someone starts dancing in the middle of a busy sidewalk, not for attention, simply because they feel like it. A businessman sings loudly while walking to work. A student answers every question in class without worrying about giving the wrong answer. Nobody blushes. Nobody looks away. Nobody whispers, "What will people think?" For the first time in history, fear of social judgment is gone, and something incredible happens. Creativity explodes. Artists paint ideas they were once afraid to show. Inventors share strange concepts without fear of being laughed at. People wear unusual clothes, try new hairstyles, speak honestly, and express themselves more freely than ever before. It feels like the world has become truly authentic. But then, a small problem appears. Someone accidentally interrupts another person. Normally, they would feel awkward, say, "I'm sorry," and move on. But this time, they don't feel anything. No embarrassment, no discomfort, no reason to apologize. At first, it seems harmless. But when millions of people stop feeling embarrassed, small moments like these begin happening. Again and again and again. Slowly, society starts changing in ways nobody expected. Because maybe embarrassment wasn't stopping our confidence. Maybe it was quietly protecting our kindness. But this is only the beginning. What happens when an entire society forgets how to feel sorry? At first, nobody noticed the change. But after a few weeks, the cracks in society became impossible to ignore. People stopped apologizing, not because they wanted to be rude, but because they no longer felt the discomfort that usually follows a mistake. Someone bumps into an elderly man and simply keeps walking. A friend forgets your birthday. They don't feel guilty. They don't even think they should. A coworker takes credit for someone else's idea, and when confronted, they just shrug. Without embarrassment, small mistakes no longer feel like mistakes, and slowly, respect begins to disappear. Relationships become colder. Conversations become harsher. People speak without thinking because there's no fear of saying the wrong thing. At first, honesty feels refreshing, but honesty without empathy can quickly become cruelty. Families argue more often. Friendships don't last as long. Trust, the invisible glue that holds people together, starts falling apart. And then scientists begin asking a terrifying question. Was embarrassment never about protecting ourselves, but protecting everyone around us? Because every time we blush, every time we look away after making a mistake, we're sending a silent message. I know I did something wrong. That simple signal helps rebuild trust. It tells others that we understand the rules of living together. Without it, society doesn't collapse overnight. It slowly, quietly falls apart from the inside. And this leads to an even bigger mystery. Why would evolution create such an uncomfortable emotion in the first place? The answer might be hiding inside your brain. To understand embarrassment, we first have to understand how the human brain learned to survive together. The answer is hidden inside one of the most complex objects in the known universe, the human brain. Long before cities, long before money, even before language, humans survived in small tribes. And in those tribes, reputation meant everything. If people trusted you, you were protected. You shared food. You found friends. You found a family. But if people stopped trusting you, survival became much harder. That's why evolution didn't just make humans intelligent. It made us social. And being social required something very very important, the ability to recognize when we had broken a social rule. That's where embarrassment comes in. Scientists believe this emotion acts like an invisible alarm. Every time we make a mistake, our brain sends a powerful signal. Your face turns red. Your heart beats faster. You avoid eye contact. You smile nervously. It feels uncomfortable, but those reactions tell everyone around you something important. I know I made a mistake. That single message helps rebuild trust. It shows humility. It shows self-awareness. And most importantly, it tells others that you still care about the group. Without embarrassment, those signals disappear. People can no longer tell the difference between someone who made an honest mistake and someone who simply doesn't care. Slowly, trust begins to fade. Communities become weaker. Cooperation becomes harder. And something as small as one missing emotion starts changing the future of an entire civilization. Suddenly, embarrassment doesn't seem like a flaw anymore. It begins to look like one of humanity's greatest inventions. But there's one final twist. One question that changes everything. What if the emotion we spend our whole lives trying to avoid is actually the reason human civilization still works today? Imagine, 10 years have passed. A generation has grown up without ever feeling embarrassment. Children no longer hesitate before speaking. Adults no longer apologize after hurting someone. Nobody feels awkward. Nobody blushes. Nobody thinks twice before breaking a social rule. At first, it looked like freedom, but over time, the world became louder, colder, more divided. Trust became rare. Respect slowly disappeared. Not because people became evil, but because they lost the emotion that reminded them other people's feelings matter. Then scientists looked back at history and realized something extraordinary. Every civilization, every successful community, every lasting friendship relied on one invisible force, the ability to recognize our mistakes and care about how they affect others. That's exactly what embarrassment does. It doesn't exist to make us suffer. It exists to help us live together. Maybe the moments we wish we could erase, the awkward conversations, the blushing, the nervous smile, they're not signs of weakness. They're proof that we're human. So the next time you feel embarrassed, remember this. Your brain isn't trying to punish you. It's reminding you that you belong to a society built on trust. And perhaps that's one of the greatest survival tools evolution ever gave us. Because sometimes the emotions we hate the most are the ones protecting us every single day. So here's one final question. If you had a button that could erase embarrassment forever, would you really press it? Or would you keep the one emotion that might be holding humanity together? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed exploring impossible questions like this, subscribe to Thinkora Why, because the next question might completely change the way you see the world. Curiosity changes knowledge, but questions change the world. Subscribe to Thinkora Why for more mind-bending stories every week.